Have you ever just looked up at the night sky and felt completely floored? You know, that sense of wonder mixed with this one giant, overwhelming question? It's a question that has followed us for as long as we've been human, really, winding its way through philosophy, science, and faith. Now, look, we're not going to find some magic bullet answer here. Instead, we're going to explore the question itself. Because maybe, just maybe, the way we ask the question is the most important part.
Does God exist? I mean, it's just 3 words, right? But wow, they carry the weight of entire civilizations, libraries packed with centuries of thought, and, of course, our own personal journeys. To even start to get our heads around this, we have to begin from a place of radical honesty. We have to admit what we don't know and maybe even what we can't know.
And that brings us right here to agnosticism. At its core, it isn't about saying yes or no. It's a statement of humility. It's the view that our own minds, as incredible as they are, have limits. It's about being honest enough to say, you know what, I can't be 100% certain. For our journey today, this is going to be our home base, our starting point.
Okay, before we dive any deeper, we need to get the language straight. I mean, people come at this from a few very different angles, so let's just lay out the main camps. See where everyone's coming from on this belief spectrum.
So you've basically got 3 main players on the field. Theism is the positive claim. Yep, I believe a god or gods exist. Then you have atheism, which is the position of non-belief. Nope, I don't believe a god or gods exist. But see how agnosticism is kind of different? It's not making a claim about God, it's making a claim about us. It's a position on the limits of our own knowledge.
But just when you think you've got it all sorted into neat little boxes, this quote from Robert G. Ingersoll comes along and shakes things up. He's basically arguing that, in the real world, agnosticism and atheism can be 2 sides of the same coin. For a lot of people, the thought process is, I don't have enough evidence to know if God is real, which then leads them to say, so I don't believe in God. It turns out the labels are a lot more blurry than you might think. Okay, but here's where we hit a huge roadblock. Even if we get past the labels of who believes what, we've been throwing this word God around like we all agree on what it means. And we really don't. Before you can ask if something exists, you kind of have to define what that something is, right?
And this just shows how different the ideas can be. On the one hand, you've got the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, which generally see a single external creator God, a being separate from the universe he created. But then, on the other hand, you have many dharmic traditions, like Hinduism and Buddhism, that paint a totally different picture. Divinity isn't necessarily a separate being, but could be the ultimate reality, the very fabric of existence itself. We're asking the same question about 2 totally different subjects.
And it gets even messier. Even inside that Abrahamic family, the ideas are wildly different. This Reddit comment just nails it. The idea of God literally walking on earth is central to Christianity, but if you're coming from a traditional Jewish or Islamic viewpoint where God is completely separate from creation, that idea just doesn't compute. So the thing we're even trying to talk about keeps changing shape.
All right, let's just, for a minute, try to pin one down. For the sake of argument, let's focus on the idea most of us in the West are familiar with, a single God who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. The second we do that, we walk straight into what I like to call the philosopher's gauntlet, a series of logical challenges that have been testing this idea for thousands of years.
And this is maybe the heaviest hitter of them all, the problem of evil. Javed Akhtar puts it with such raw, gut-punching clarity here. How can a being who is supposedly all-powerful and all-good just allow this level of suffering to happen? It's a question that has haunted philosophers forever, and it's one of the biggest hurdles for belief.
And then you get the classic logic puzzle, right? The one you've probably heard before. Can God create a stone so heavy he can't lift it? Now, these aren't just silly word games. They force us to really think about what all-powerful even means. And what most thinkers have landed on is this. Omnipotence isn't the power to do the logically impossible. It's not about making a square circle. That's just a meaningless contradiction. It's the power to do anything that can be done.
Okay, we pushed philosophy and logic about as far as they can go. So what if the problem isn't just with our words, but with our very understanding of reality itself? It's time to leave the philosopher's armchair and step into the physics lab, where things get a whole lot weirder than we ever could have imagined.
All right, hang with me here, because this is the experiment that pretty much shatters our common sense view of the world. It's called the double slit experiment. Scientists fire electrons one by one at a wall with 2 little slits in it. Now, if they were tiny baseballs, you'd expect to see 2 simple stripes on the screen behind it. But that's not what happens.
When nobody is looking to see which slit the electron goes through, you get this weird pattern of many stripes. That's how a wave behaves, as if it went through both slits at once. But how can one electron be in two places? And here's the part that just blows your mind. The second they put a detector there to see which slit the electron actually goes through, poof, the wave pattern disappears. It acts like a little baseball again, and you get just two stripes. The simple act of looking, of measuring, completely changes the result.
Okay, let that sink in for a second. This isn't just a weird lab trick. This is an entire way of understanding physics that says reality isn't some fixed objective thing out there waiting for us. Instead, reality itself seems to be created through interaction. Things like an electron's position might not even exist in a definite way until we look at them. Reality is a dialogue.
So if the very fabric of the universe is that weird and uncertain, what does that say about us, about our own lives? Let's take that same lens and turn it inward, to our own minds, and talk about something we all feel we have: free will.
Dr. Vikas Divyakirthi tells a great story about this. Picture a team of scientists with supercomputers, and they've been studying you your entire life. They know everything: your psychology, your childhood, what colors you like, everything.
And after all that, they tell me something crazy. They tell me that tomorrow morning, you are going to freely choose to wear a light green shirt. So the next morning, you wake up, you open your closet, nobody's forcing you, you look at your blue shirt, your red shirt, and of your own free will, you reach out and you grab the light green.
So here's the kicker. From your perspective, that choice felt 100% free. You thought about it, you decided. But if someone could predict your free choice a day before you made it, how free was it really? This is an idea called compatibilism, that our feeling of freedom is totally compatible with a universe that runs on cause and effect. Your choices are yours, yeah, but they are the predictable result of everything that made you, you.
So, after all of that, where does this whole wild ride leave us? We've been through philosophy, theology, and straight into the weirdness of quantum physics. It's time to bring it all back home and rethink where we started.
Think about where we began. We had this nice, simple question, but right away, it started to crumble. The very definition of God was like sand shifting through our fingers. The logic we tried to apply tied itself into knots with paradoxes. And then, as if that wasn't enough, physics came along and told us that the very reality we're standing on is fundamentally uncertain.
And this brings us back to this really powerful, grounding idea from Ingersoll. All our hopes, all our fears, what we believe or what we deny, none of it changes the facts of what is. Reality is what it is, and our job isn't to wish it were different, but to try and understand our relationship to it, no matter how strange that relationship gets.
This is the final mind-bending twist. That first question we asked, does God exist? Well, it had a hidden assumption baked right into it. It assumed that there's a stable us over here, looking out through a telescope at a stable, separate reality over there.
But if what we just learned from quantum physics is true, if the line between the observer and the observed is blurry, if the very act of looking can change what's there, then what does it even mean to ask what exists outside of us? Maybe the ultimate question isn't what's out there, but what kind of reality are we all participating in creating? And that is a question that leaves you with a deep and frankly beautiful sense of mystery.